Alright, that is the end of the game. Alright. Okay. Credits! Alright. I think I am glad that I left it for today, because if I left it for yesterday, who knows what kind of crazy situation I'd be in right now. Alright, let me grab my thoughts here. Let me chuck you over here. Alright. I have to admit that even though I had some anticipations for this being the end, I didn't think it was going to, especially with that whole ending sequence that was happening. I just had the suspicion that it was going to go on for another 20 hours. But, oh well. Anyways, Gujian 3, Conquered. My overall thoughts? I enjoyed this game quite a bit. There's so many things in this game that really resonate with me as far as like interests. I like I guess the era aesthetics, but I also like the touch of mysticism and magic that they've added to it. I like the combat design. I like the overall story. I like the characters. Pretty much everything in this game I like, and it's really, really cool for me because this game, I just randomly stumbled upon on Steam one day, and I was just like, oh, these screenshots, this video trailer looks pretty cool. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Let me just add that to my wish list, and I'll get back to it someday. And like, here we are, and I'm playing this game, and this game is, awesome. So, very, very happy that I just randomly stumbled upon this game. This is definitely what I would call a hidden gem, because it was hidden, and it's a gem of a game. Story, was it satisfying? I guess I could say it was satisfying. I don't necessarily think there's much that I'm missing out on, but I definitely don't see this conclusion to be like, you know what, this story did not end the way I wanted it to. Like, it ended nicely, so I'll go with that. Did it feel complete? I would say like 99.5% of it is complete. I feel like there is one very important thing that we didn't touch upon, which I can understand is not necessarily that important in the grand scheme of things, but we didn't repair the trigrams at Sky Elk. And that was basically the entire reason why we moved off to wherever we went and went on this journey and stuff like that. So it would have been a nice touch, I guess, to acknowledge that, but it wasn't entirely necessary. I get it. How was the pacing? I have here, I think the pacing in this game is a very big issue. Despite having moments where characters explain their motivations or feelings, which are very welcome, things just happen in this game. There's very little build-up to very impactful moments, and there's always a moment of reflection afterwards. It's awkward. So, I guess to kind of explain this more, there are really cool moments that happen, but there's no build up to it. It's just like an abrupt thing that happens, and overall, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it makes kind of sifting through the story just a little stranger than I would have wanted it to be. And it's true that we do get more context later on, which provides so much more realization of why things are happening. But I wish they could have built up to some of these crazy moments, like I'm forgetting the city name, but the city that gets swallowed up in all that other crazy stuff, and we have to go in there, and there's vines attacking us and whatnot. I wish there was a little bit more build up to that. Sometimes it just feels like we're just walking along and not really paying much mind to what we're doing, and then all of a sudden, something happens, and we're like, oh, we gotta go address that. I think that was probably the biggest issue for me. Was the pacing of the story beats. I'll get to that in a second, or many seconds. Let's see, thoughts on the story. I admit the story is starting to go off the rails a little bit. We're trying to strengthen the trigram so that Sky Elk can be safe from demon attacks, but instead we're on some grand adventure. We effectively release some ancient evil guy who wants to destroy the world. We go dream hopping for reasons mostly unknown 20 hours in. Feels like we got distracted and forgot the actual reason we're adventuring in the first place. So, interestingly enough, I still feel like this is relatively true. There are some addendums to this that say like, well, this is not actually the case, but overall, it does feel like the story just kind of goes off the rails. It's like we have our objective, and we're going there, and all of a sudden we're gonna go that way, and then we just start going off in some crazy random directions. And even at the end of it all, sure, Sen Ying and we'll say nameless youth, they discuss it towards the end, and they're like, hey, here's my plans for that. I'm handing them off to you. They don't actually come to that resolution. And so like the reason we go on our journey isn't the reason that we finish our journey. And sometimes it's just nice to have that cap off, of, hey, we didn't forget about this, or hey, this is that last bit of acknowledgement, I suppose. The dream hopping is also very, very strange. I want to believe that Wu Zhao was trying to manipulate Beilu's dreams to find specific information so that he could enact his Jiling plan, but I'm not 100% certain if that's was the plan. Was he just trying to waste Beilu's time? I don't know. There's so many random dreams that we just go into and experience, and while they were very cool places to go, I don't really understand the narrative significance or the narrative reasoning for why we visited those places and why they are important to the overall story. I feel like several of them could have just been removed, and there would have been no ramifications to the storytelling. And, arguably you would have improved the storytelling by, cutting out some stuff. Let's see. The revelation that Beilu is the reincarnation of Jinyun really makes so many strange things fall into place. Prior to that revelation, I was very confused about the motivations of Wu Zhao. I talked about this, it was yesterday or the day before. But this revelation in so many ways is extremely cool. It because when you're going through the game, it just, as mentioned before, like all these random things are happening, and it just doesn't make any sense. And then, you know, like Wu Zhao's like, I'm gonna play games with you, but I'm not going to kill you. You know, I want you to suffer. I want to attack your homeland, but I'm not going to kill you. And it just doesn't make any sense why he's going through all this effort to attack things around Beilu, but, you know, not kill Beilu when he totally has the power and ability to do so. And then we learn that he's Gujian, and it just clicks, you know, like, ah, okay, so that's why you're doing this. And it just works, you know, it just works. I understand that this is probably not the type of narrative storytelling that the thing that I'm about to say is not necessarily the type of storytelling that it may be common, you know, to other places around the world. But I do wish that that revelation was kind of delivered as a bombshell. In this game, you know, everyone is so calm and collected, and they think things through, that when the revelation happened, it was just like, yeah, I'm Gujian. I realized it. Yeah, I know it's crazy, and it didn't come off as like, oh my gosh, which is somewhat common in the West, but you know, maybe in the East, it is more common to just be like, yeah, what's up? I'm Gujian. You can bow to me now. But you know, I don't know, whatever. I will also say for the story, while I do kind of feel like it was relatively fragmented, and it, like, things didn't necessarily move from one place to the next with a lot of fluidity. I do enjoy how it progressed in a way where, you know, we start off as Zhuanga, and you know, we get introduced to Sky Elk, and then, you know, we get injured, and so we have to find the twin brother, and the twin brother takes over, but you know, like, he's not 100% sure if this is what he wants to do. Like, you know, why would he want to rule over Sky Elk? It doesn't make any sense. And you know, then Sky Elk is in danger, so he's like, well, dang, I guess I gotta do my duty. And so he does that, and then he, you know, goes off, and he inadvertently, you know, he doesn't do it, but you know, his actions set into motion the release of Wu Zhao, who was like, oh, you done goofed now. And then it's just kind of like a mental battle throughout the rest of the game until the very end, where it's like, oh, I'm Gujian. It all makes sense now. I guess I better stop Wu Zhao for real, not just, you know, on the side. So, you know, the overall outline was very nice. So, you know, I gotta throw that out there. For the writing, I thought the translation was really good. You know, I don't speak the language that they are speaking in this game, which maybe Mandarin, maybe I don't know if Chinese is a language in China, but we'll just say the common languages spoken in the China or surrounding China regions, or interior China regions, you know, wherever you may be living. But I did feel the translation was very good. There's a small percentage of typos, but none of them had me question or made me question the intent of what was being said. So I wanted to throw it out there that I definitely caught plenty of typos. But it is a small percentage, and I was able to understand what the characters were saying, even with those typos being there. And so they didn't really matter to me as a whole. But I wanted to definitely acknowledge that the translation here was or felt very good. I I liked especially that it th- this might sound a little crazy, but from my perspective, which doesn't have a whole lot of interactions with the cultures displayed in this game or the cultures of the developers that made this game, it felt like an authentic interpretation of what they were trying to get across. And you know, however and whatever that means, you know, you could take that what you will, but for me that is a compliment. I am saying that as a compliment. I will say that there are a lot of woos. There's a person named Wu, then there's Wu Zhao, Wu Zan, Wu Zu, and probably a few others that I've forgotten. There's a lot of woos in this game. They ain't no Wu Tang, but there's a lot of woos in this game. And I I I definitely understand that, you know, it could be a very common word or phrase or what have you. And there could be a lot of people with Wu in their name. But I think it would have benefited this game a lot if some of those woos were turned into something else, twos or threes, you know, however you want to go about that. For characters, Yunue is a very awesome character, although she does feel exceptionally powerful, versatile, and knowledgeable, which can make her a Deus Ex Machina in some ways. Yeah, she, so her her reason for being with the party was was an interesting one, you know. She made a deal with her Zhuanga, and you know, she sticks around, and I think she has a very good reason for being powerful. But her inclusion also makes it so that she can either get us out of a lot of dangerous situations or is able to, I guess, like lighten the burden that is placed on Beilu a lot. And I think a lot of the time it the struggles that Beilu goes through is more so mental struggles rather than the actual like exertion struggles. I don't want to say physical exertion struggles because, you know, there's like crazy dreams going on, but you know, he has to think through what he wants to do or overcome, and kind of battle with his decision rather. But Yunue, she kind of handles all the, we'll say, physical exertions in the game. You know, she's getting him out of dream jams, and she's explaining a lot of things that are going on. And so I guess in some ways it just kind of ruins the discovery of learning that. But she's awesome, so, you know, there's that. Also surprised that she didn't betray us. If she was the final boss, I would have been so overjoyed. Not because that I guessed it correctly, but because that would have been the greatest long con of all. To just not necessarily have been the mastermind, but to have waited for so long to accomplish X, Y, or Z, and Wu Zhao just set the pieces in place perfectly for her. It would have been so cool. But, you know, she's a homie, so gotta be happy that she's a homie. I feel Wu Zhao wasn't utilized enough. most of our explanations about him are from other character interactions rather than our own interactions with him. So yeah, I don't think they use Wu Zhao very much. We do get cutscenes with him, but they're those villain cutscenes where he's, you know, talking to his villainous homies, and it's not us interacting with him. Now that doesn't, or I guess that only relates to how he is acting in the current times, because in the past times I feel like we do get some interaction with him, but it's also not 100% necessary to get that same interaction that I want in the present time, because the character is telling us what he wanted back then and how he was interacting and all this stuff. Like, it makes sense that we're getting it from their perspective, but I would have liked Wu Zhao to show up a little bit more and be like, you know, I'm gonna bust you up, sucker. I don't know, it's just how it's gonna be. You know, he only did like two times or something like that. And I like interacting with villains is the moral of this story. And the more times I get to interact with the villains without them, you know, being defeated and running off and saying, "I'll get you next time, coppers," you know, the better. Gameplay mechanics and design. What gameplay elements stand out? Saving is a little awkward in the sense that it seems to function like auto-saving, and it has a cooldown. According to some of the reviews, you must have an internet connection to save, which is not a great choice. Yeah, I'm not necessarily a fan of the saving ability here. In single-player games, especially a game like, well, maybe not especially like a game like this, but in single player games, I would very much rather have the security, maybe the safety net of like a hard save that, you know, I just have access to. And, you know, I'll be like, okay, I saved here. This is where I'm going to respawn, or, you know, whatever. And, you know, this is the date that I saved. This is the time that I have, you know, like the information. This is the chapter. These are my characters, you know, just like that general save information that we typically see with saves. But this game just, it's kind of weird. And then, like, if you don't remember to save, the autosave doesn't necessarily happen as often as you might expect. It might be at very specific triggers. And so if you die in between those triggers, sometimes it'll send you very far back. And, you know, that has happened to me once or twice. So I'm very much a person that likes to save a lot. But the way that this game makes you save, I guess it interrupted or disrupted that saving mentality for me. And the cooldown part is very weird. Like, I guess they put that there because it has to like sync with the servers or something like that. But yeah, not really a fan of the saving. But, you know, moving on. Not really a fan of the pulse search mechanic either. It's ultimately not fun to keep pressing it to find stuff. In situations where it's helpful to highlight enemies on the map, that highlight disappears moments before the cooldown on the pulse is up. So yeah, I've played some other games with this search mechanic, and it's generally just not very fun to be pressing a button to search for things. It's at the very least, it's not very fun to press the button multiple times to search for things. If I pressed it once and it highlighted all the stuff and that highlight stayed there, then I'd be like, okay, you know, that is a step in the right direction. But it goes away fairly quickly. And there's not a lot of cues on where exactly it is. I've been trying to figure out if there's like a spatial like sound thing, because sometimes I hear it in this speaker and sometimes I hear it in this speaker, and like you will see it, like I will move in that direction or I'll like look in that direction to see if I see it. But I'm not 100% sure if that's how it works. I guess I should have tested that more. But yeah, I guess just overall, I'd either rather those specific items be highlighted in a different way, or a different implementation of this search ring so that it's a lot less tedious. And I will admit that this implementation of the search ring thing is probably the best implementation that I have interacted with compared to other games, because the radius is so large and you get that audio cue, and so you know if it's very far away and if you know if it's very close to you, and then you get the aura around the item as well. But at the same time, I just don't think it's quite there yet where I can say like, okay, I'm happy with this feature. And yeah. I wish I could toggle things on the map, such as people who want to play the card game, people I can talk to, things I can pick up, etc. Yeah, this is just one of those nice little quality of life things. I get that there is a little bit of a sense of discovery and maybe, you know, some desire to want to go through the towns again and, you know, see where all the NPCs have been moved and whatnot. But there comes a time when you realize you're playing a video game and, you know, you just want to accomplish very specific things. And for me, when I go to a town, I want to check the notice board to see if anybody wants to do battle with the card game. And then I want to check all the streets to see if, or at least comb through a little bit of the streets to see if there's anybody new. And I think this game did not make it very easy to recognize who you have already talked to and new people that you can talk to. And, you know, implementing a feature like that would be extremely helpful. For me, placing that feature on the map so that I could be like, oh, okay, I got to go over here and do that. But also being able to toggle it off if I don't want to see that kind of stuff anymore is, you know, like the best of both worlds. You can have it there, or if you don't want it, you don't have to. Let's see. I can see why only one side quest can be tracked, but I'd like to see more. So I wrote this a while back. I don't necessarily agree with this. Based on the rest of how the game played out, I don't think any of the side quests that I've encountered necessarily necessitate having multiple side quests equipped. I think they did a fairly good job of making the side quests, this is going to sound disrespectful, but feel mundane and not necessarily important. They're really just run-of-the-mill, you know, standard RPG side quests that don't really have any significance to much of anything. And they're just there to give you access to more money or some items or something like that, you know, however that's facilitated. I don't think there was a single side quest that was very interactive or was a multi-stage side quest. I guess the green tongue maybe was the one. That one was actually pretty interactive. What was I doing? Like 3 damage, 4 damage? No, it was like 2 or 3 damage with my attacks on that guy. Took like an hour and a half, I think, to beat him. Good times. That was a while back. I also think stamina should not deplete outside combat. It's not fun waiting for stamina to recharge when I'm just traveling around. So this is not necessarily as egregious of an issue, but for me, there's that one scenario where it's like, okay, we're gonna have you run, and after 20 seconds, you know, you can't run anymore, and it's gonna take 2 seconds to recharge your run so you can run again. Why bother with the recharge if it's such a small amount of time? Just put a trigger for combat or whatever. It's just like, now you have combat stamina recharge, and when you're outside of combat, it's like run to your heart's content. It's more of like a game design thing. Maybe it's like a limitation, you know, for how things are coded or what have you. But yeah, just a quality of life change I would like to see. I think the default controller support, even if not ideal in some areas, is absolutely fantastic. I like that there are binds for holding down a button and pressing another button. I think there are not enough games that do this, where you can hold down a trigger and then press another button, and that combination of, you know, buttons being pressed is different than if you just held down the trigger once, or pressed the trigger, or just pressed the button, you know, individually. It adds so many more buttons that you can be pressing, and it was just nice to be able to have access to so many different attacks and feel the breadth of options that are available, and not be constrained by, like, I don't want to say typical, but just common controller button layouts and things like that. It's always nice to have those extra options and not have them feel awkward. I don't think there was a single button combination where I was like, man, this is a chore to actually go through. Most of the issues I was having was me just pressing the wrong buttons, because where the heck are my fingers on this controller? I'm too busy paying attention to other kinds of crazy stuff. And then to just add on top of that, I don't know if I have it in here, but you can rebind, I think, almost any key in this game, which is fantastic. There are plenty of games out there that don't let you rebind a single key, let alone all the keys, or at least a great chunk of keys, or button presses or what have you. So the fact that this game lets you do that, you know, just you know, gotta praise that too. I wish the side quests were more involved. With that said, I do like how hands-off they are, in the sense that it's a turn in and done rather than listening to the nonsense that doesn't matter. So yeah, on one hand, you know, the side quests are, you know, you get a quest, you walk to them, it's like, do you have what I need? Yes. Oh, quest done. You know, your loot and stuff like that is in the chat log. If you don't have what I need. And then you just move on. There's no like, oh, you brought my 20 watermelons. You know, thank you very much. Why don't you come inside? You know, I'm gonna, you know, start cooking up these watermelons. You know, put them on the grill. You know, put a little bit of salt and pepper on them. You know, it's gonna be delicious. You know what? Let me tell you how my family had been growing watermelons since, you know, the 3,000 years ago. Let me start from the very beginning, when the very first person in my family was born. Some games do that, and, you know, some people love that stuff, but that stuff is just annoying a lot. Or it's annoying when, like, none of that stuff matters, and, like, the character doesn't matter. And it has no significance later on in the game. I enjoyed how hands off it was. Even if I wish that there were more hands-on quests but the caveat there is they would have to matter, you know. If I got a side quest about that bird or whatever, and I learned more about the bird that was chilling with oh yeah, we didn't get anything about the bird. Oh yeah, the bird was moving around with that last descendant of, they were given a mission. Maybe that's a Gujian 4 thing. They're like, you forgot about this. I don't know. We'll see. Is the story complete? No. There is a thread that they did not touch upon anymore. And they even acknowledged that at the end of the game. Suck a fool. What was I talking about? Side quests. Yeah, if the side quests, if we got like a side quest to learn more about that bird and who that bird was and why the bird can talk, or why the bird's a bird, or why the bird is important to Wu Zhao, you know, it would have been cool stuff. The mini games for crafting are definitely a little much. There's too many, and while it can be cool that they exist, I think they're too simple and very unnecessary. I recognize that this is a tragedy to reference, but I don't think the mini games for the crafting really add anything. If anything, they create moments where they detract from the experience that is trying to be conveyed, I suppose. There are situations where it's like there's a hammer on the ground and they're like, go grab that hammer. It's like, you could walk over and grab that hammer and there would have been zero detriment to whatever you're trying to craft. You know, it really doesn't make sense. First of all, why is the hammer on the ground? Shouldn't it be on your crafting bench or something like that? And then the other thing is it also creates issues where maybe the translation doesn't work, or in the sense of either maybe they got the translation wrong, or maybe the context given to the player is not necessarily matching. There was a situation where a blacksmith wanted to break some rocks. It's like, go grab me a tool for that. There was a hammer and there was an axe. And to me, the hammer seems like a pretty good tool for breaking some rocks. But the answer was the axe. And I don't necessarily understand why the axe is the better tool for that. So like that information wasn't necessarily conveyed to me because they're so simple and like they're timed, and you don't have you have time to think, but you don't necessarily have time to understand or go through the thought process of what is actually the correct decision. Sometimes you just got to make that snap call and just go with it. And sometimes you get burned for it. I don't want to say that the mini games kind of felt tacked on, but I do feel like they were just a little too simple to really add any value to my game experience anyways. And I would have preferred if they just didn't exist. speaking of the Lotuscape, of which I did not even mention the Lotuscape until this very sentence, I think this was a great idea that added a ton of extra content to the game. Yeah, this was super cool. Not something that I was expecting per se. When I was getting the seeds and some other materials, I was like, okay, there's got to be a way to like use the fingerlings or use the seeds to grow things. But I wasn't expecting it in the way it was delivered. And I think the way it was delivered is actually extremely cool. You have this little pocket dimension and you can grow crops, you can raise fish, you can get minerals and things like that. You can build a house and make it look, I guess, in the design that you want. And you can build all these little amenities around, you know, like a hot spring for the Persimmon family members. You know, it's just it's super cool. It is super cool. And then you have like chickens and ducks and stuff like that. It's very cool. Having beaten the game, I do think that they could have built that up a little bit more, but it's like just thinking about building the Lotuscape just seems like a huge task. So I like what was delivered. I think it was very, very nice. If I had any things that I would like to see in the future, I think assigning a pack spirit, which I'll talk to in a moment, to a specific, I don't know, a harvest thing. I kind of wish that they would automatically harvest those things. So the way that I would prefer it is, if nothing is assigned, then, you know, you don't get anything. But if you assign a pack spirit, then they will harvest and replant that crop for as long as they will basically tend to that crop for as long as they have the energy to do so. And when they exhaust, you know, then they go away. But during the time that they're doing that, they're harvesting what's ready to be harvested and, you know, putting it into a chest or something like that, and replanting the seeds if you have any extra ones. Basically an auto farm for that specific thing. I think that implementation just would have been better, because having to go back and, you know, refarm everything should be, I guess, should be a thing that you're only going to be doing when you want to change up how you're doing or to get the exhaustion returned. I mean, there's got to be a reason to go back to the Lotuscape, obviously. But having them like reduce the duration and stuff like that stuff doesn't seem, at least for a casual playthrough, or at least the way that I played it, doesn't seem all too important. I was maxing out so many things. Packed animals are super cool, and I like that you can acquire them from quests, contract killings, and whatever other ways. So this was very, very cool. I'll talk about their, I guess, combat implementations later, but the packed creatures as a whole is very cool, and it was not something that I was expecting, and it's a nice little twist on things, that you get to recruit spirits to help you out, in addition to people, although the people can't really be assigned to any of that stuff, just the pack spirits, but some pack spirits turn into people, so I don't know. Anyways, yeah, pack spirits are super cool as a whole, in the Lotus Scape, and I like how they did that. They all have their own individual stats and what they're good at, and then they have like an ability that's related to like the specific icon that they're good at. It's super cool. I like the idea of having to recruit artisans of different trades and level them up to get new and interesting things. So this aspect was also very cool, to basically have this army of artisans that can build you things and research things, and it's very, very cool. I will say, now that I've beaten the game, the limitation of having the artisans only go up to level 2 felt not great to me. I kind of wish they had more levels. The distinction between level 1 and 2 felt strange, I guess. I would much rather see a 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, but have it take the same amount of time. It feels more progressive, I guess. It would have been nicer to see, rather than going to 1, like 1 to 2. Just maybe it just needs to be displayed differently, you know, like you're an apprentice and now you're a master or something like that. The way, anyways, recruiting artisans is super cool. I like that they all kind of have their own little quests involved, and some of them are super simple, some of them are slightly more involved, and they have you doing cool stuff. And many of the characters have unique aspects to them. Like the one chick that I just keep going back on, she had a wooden leg and like a smoking pipe on her arm, like super cool. The card minigame is awesome. I do think it's a more difficult game, having to go off of the pictures and memory, but there are a few tools available to make it slightly easier. The card game, I think it's called Lost Tales. It's amazing. I like that card game a lot. I can definitely say that I am probably playing the game not to its fullest potential, because I'm basically going off of memory the entire time. I don't get to read the actual cards. I have to remember the interactions, and we all know that my memory is not the greatest. But the game as a whole, and the way that at least I was playing the game, I had so much fun. It reminds me of basically most card games out there that are introduced in games, where, you know, the card game has suddenly become the main story for me, and everything else is the side quest. I had so much fun with the Lost Tales card game. So much fun. There's a lot of instances in the game where things just take longer than I would hope. After catching a fish, you can't skip ahead to fish again. You have to view the fish and its weight for some odd seconds first. The action wheel has a delay to it, and using items in it has animation locking. Cycling through the world map areas such as Common Realm, Dream World, and I have Dream World here a second time, but the other one is Spirit Realm, I think. They all have animations that need to play out before skipping or selection can occur, and loading into the main menu. So yeah, all of these have these little delays to them, and I will add, well, all of these have little delays to them, and it gets very obnoxious as the game goes on. The world map one is probably the most egregious, because you can't just go into so let's say I wanted to go to Sky Elk. I open the world map and I gotta wait for the common realm to populate a little bit. Then I press the button. I can't just go like directly to the spirit world. I have to cycle through the dream world first. And so I go over there, gotta wait for everything to populate. And then I can go over to the spirit world, or cycle to the spirit world. Gotta wait for everything to populate. Then I gotta bring my cursor over to the Sky Elk, and then I can go over there. But let's say I go into Sky Elk, and I was like, oh, actually, I wanted to go into the Ancient Cloister instead. So then I press the Y button to go back to the world map. I'm back on the common realm. I gotta cycle to the spirit world. I gotta wait for everything to populate. Cycle, or dream world, then cycle to the spirit world. Wait for everything to populate. It's so obnoxious. It's so time consuming. And I wish things just populated immediately. I wish there was like a cursor on the map where you're using the controller, and you can just drag it over to where you wanted to go. Using the world map should not take that long, in my opinion. It's so crazy. Being able to respec talent points in the constellation at what appears to be any time with no cost is absolutely wonderful, and I wish more games did the same. So I never actually did this, and I should have done this, but you know, doing this at the end of the game was a little risky. But I'm just gonna operate under the assumption that you can respec whenever you want, however you want. And if that assumption is the correct assumption, it is so awesome. Granted, I don't think the builds in this game are traditional builds. They're more just giving you options and letting you select from like attack skills that you feel are cool and stuff like that. But I do think that there are still some traditional taxes. Shadow form, I feel, is probably the best skill in the game. Then there's those ones that give you HP, attack, and defense, and whatnot. So, you know, like there are still those feat taxes from the Dungeons and Dragons days where they're so good that you have to take them, which makes all the other options, you know, significantly less important. But the fact that most things are attack skills, so you can kind of choose what you want for preference. I think they did a good job in that regard. But yeah, if I didn't like where I put my points over here, I can put them somewhere else. And the max level is 60, so you can't put a point in everything, and you can't double up on your points. So when you get to level 60, or even close to level 60, you can start to specialize your points instead of just spreading them out and getting access to everything. So I think that's super cool. I will also add, since we're talking about double up points, I like that they have those double up points for upgrading things. Not everything has an upgrade, but a lot of things can be upgraded to add cool little things to them. I don't necessarily feel that, at least for the text values, they are worth a point, but also at the same time, a lot of characters gain access to a lot of things that don't necessarily mean anything. And so, you know, if you're going to put a point into an attack skill you're never going to use, you might as well just put that point to somewhere else and, you know, gain 5% crit chance or something like that on that skill. So it's fine. The throw knife ability feels unnecessary and is used for so little. I I feel like I've kind of beaten this to death throughout the entire game that I've been playing it, but yeah, this ability just, it ain't it for me. I wish it was so much more, or I wish it was never there. But it does just feel kind of pointless. While basically no games do this, I wish I could sort the things I can craft by what is available. I feel this is mostly important because scrolling through all the available options is pretty slow. Yeah, so I guess I should have put this in the load escape section, but when you're crafting things, cycling through all the available options takes time, like a lot of time. And there are some areas where there's a lot of stuff to go through. I either wish that it was automatically filtered so that you don't see things that you can't craft, or there were actual filter options where you can filter out things that you don't want to see. Would have helped a lot. I really like that I can view achievements within the game itself. This is especially nice because the achievements on Steam are not in English. Yeah. And I have here, one more time, the throw dagger mechanics feels very unnecessary. Now, I could have walked up like 3 points and see that I had already said something like that. But I guess it's just so unnecessary and so pointless that I have to put it there twice. For combat, the heavy attack is super cool in that it has strings of attacks that all look very cool in succession. I wish this existed for the light attacks as well, which is a thing for the Gujian sections. So throughout this entire game, I was like, man, I wish the light attacks were treated like the heavy attacks, because the light attacks, you know, you just swing once, swing twice. And I think those are the only 2 attacks that you have. But the heavy attacks, it's like you attack and then you attack again, and then you do like the spinning move, and then you do like this like circle move, and you know, like there's like the vertical move, and then like the horizontal move. Like there's all these cool little animations and various attacks for the heavy attacks, but you don't get that with Beilu on the light attacks, and I don't know why. And it becomes even more of a thing because on the Jinyun sections, he does have those. He has the crazy moves with all of his light attacks, and then he has all the crazy moves with his heavy attacks too. And I kept thinking to myself, okay, there's going to be a moment in this game where Beilu gets access to the cool light attacks, but it just never showed up. You know, when he realized that he was Jinyun, that would have been the perfect time. You know, and obviously he's you know, not Jinyun, but he is Jinyun. But it would have just been great, you know? It would have just been really, really great to have the light attacks be treated the same as the heavy attacks, or all the greatness that is associated with that. And hey, Mr. JRPG. I like that you can cancel out of anything by dodging, preventing animation locking. So there are not a lot of games out there that I have played that really let you cancel out of basically anything. To the point where you can start up an animation for something, cancel out of it, and that animation won't finish. Like for the packed monsters, which is such a tragedy, but I'm okay with it. But yeah, canceling out of animations, I feel, is such an important thing in action games, especially when they're so fast-paced that if you're stuck in an animation, sometimes that can kill you. But in this game, you know, it's like that's not a limitation. And it feels so good to start up an attack and recognize that, oh, I just started this like 3-second attack, and this guy is charging up a gigantic laser beam in my face. I need to get the heck out of here. And you just dash out and you don't have to worry about anything. It's so good. And it feels good too. Just, you know, you start up the attack and then you're like, ah, it's great. It's great. Packed abilities are very cool and add yet another great layer to the combat. So I will say overall, the combat does have great layers and aspects to it. I think in most action games, you know, you have a standard combo string. And in this game, you know, I would say that is relatively true as well. Mostly because the heavy attack is the only one that has multiple attacks. But you can weave in attacks. You can do like 2 light attacks and then do a heavy attack. And like that string will be slightly different than if you just did a heavy attack into like 2 light attacks and then another string of heavy attacks. Like it's all, it's a little dynamic, I suppose. There's then the rift ability where you use some of your stamina and you teleport to an enemy and you hit them a bunch of times. And then you have the transformation ability, which weirdly enough gives you access to different packed abilities, but the only packed ability that I had access to there was fireflies, and I don't understand how it got there, but I'm not going to complain because I used it sometimes and it was very useful during the green tongue fight. But then like the transformation ability also has some different skills there. And then you have your regular skills, and then you have the dodge mechanic, which you can do like perfect dodges. Whenever, a lot of the times when I get those perfect dodges as Beilu, I was still taking damage. So I don't really know what's going on there. But then there's guarding, and then there's perfect guarding. And then you have the packed abilities, and the packed abilities can level up the more they use them, but they also only go up to level 2 for some reason, which is very strange. And so there are just so many great layers to the combat, and I never felt overwhelmed by all of it. It all just kind of felt, I don't want to necessarily say natural, but it felt like everything just gelled together really well and didn't pile on more complications to the combat mechanics. I was very, very pleased with the combat. For dungeons, I don't really have any comments about the dungeons. I think the majority of everywhere was fairly linear, which is, you know, totally fine. For cardinal sins, I don't think I have any cardinal sins. You can argue, I probably should say that removing a key party member without sufficient replacement, but I haven't added that one, so, you know, we're just gonna move on with our lives. For miscellaneous sound and music, I will be buying the soundtrack as soon as I end the stream, and I'll be adding that to my Level Up List playlist list to listen to in the future. I thought the music in this game was very nice. I don't often get to listen to music from other cultures, I guess. And there have been a few instances where I have, and I've been very, very happy with them, like soundtrack wise. And I feel like the soundtrack for this game reminds me of something that would be from another culture and something that I would enjoy a lot, because there was a lot of tracks in here that I enjoyed listening to. And I look forward to listening to them again as a soundtrack listen to, rather than, you know, just experiencing them in the game. For voice acting, it sounded good. You know, I couldn't understand it, but it sounded good. I will say that this entire game, less than one, maybe less than 0.5% of this game is not voice acted. But all the side quests are voice acted. All the NPCs are voice acted. All the main characters are voice acted. The main story is voice acted. There's so little dialogue that is not voice acted. And that was a surprise to me. Because, you know, just mentioning other games out there, you know, there's so many games out there that voice act just the main story, or they voice act half the main story, or they do some other crazy combination. So I definitely appreciate that this game was voice acted, because, you know, it's cool. Even if I couldn't understand it, you know, they voice acted the entire thing. That's cool. For graphics, the locations of the world look really nice. Many of them are extremely variety. I guess what I'm trying to say there is extreme variety, like Lake Ding in the spirit world, or the dream world, which turned out to be Farsight Bay, which is what I was referring to, the desert and the moon bridge. Yeah, so the locations in this game, I don't want to say they all felt unique, but there were a ton of unique locations that were completely different from any other location in the game. And that was super cool. The picture book place, you know, like what the heck? And then you have Farsight Bay, which is this crazy desert. And then you have Lake Ding, which might be my favorite place in this entire game. It's unbelievably cool to have the snowscape, and then like this water vortex coming down from the ceiling, and then you realize that the ceiling is actually the surface of the lake. It's so cool. Unbelievably cool. And then there's like the volcano area, which, you know, wasn't really what didn't really match my likes aesthetically, but it's super cool that there was just volcano area. There's some foresty areas. Some of them are dark, some of them are not. Some caves. Some of those caves look pretty cool. You know, the whatchamacallit, Ancient Cloister, you know, that place was crazy. There's a lot of great locations in the game. So looked great. And like visually, I think the game looked great too. Replay value. Does the game offer additional story content past the second playthrough to warrant me playing the game again? Let's see here. Yeah, finished the complete adventure of Gujian 3, Dreaming Under Ancient Stars. Thanks for playing. Challenge mode has been unlocked. I guess the answer to that question is no. I guess the answer to that question is no. Let's see. Is the game worth recommending? Absolutely. All right, look. This game is the bomb diggity. Okay. Just gonna throw that out there. This is the hidden gem. If for whatever reason you are watching this particular thoughts video and you got this far and you're like, you know what? I don't need to play that game. Axelrod told me everything I need to know. No, you should play this game. This game is great. And it's not very expensive either. If I were to go to the Steam page right now, it is $30. And I played it, or I bought it for less than that when it was on sale. It was like 15 bucks or something like that. Maybe no, it was like $9 or $8. It was, whatever the price was, it was less than $30. And it's a great game. Okay. This is a $60 game, in my opinion. And I think that says something. You can even call this one a $70 game. So the fact that you're getting it for $30 or less, my goodness. Let's see. We're going to skip that question because I never have the right answer to it. If the developer is watching. So I definitely have some. I think a lot of my criticisms about this game are mostly from a mechanical nature, or just how the pacing or storytelling is conveyed. But the story itself, the combat, the general, basically the rest of the mechanics, like everything else about this game, I enjoyed so much. And it means so much more to me that this was a game that was never on my radar, and I just randomly found it. It's so unbelievably cool to me that that discovery is like still exists for me, where I can just stumble upon a game that I've never seen before and have it be as good as this one was. And on top of that, it comes from a region that I have not played very many games from, but is a region that I have like experienced before in other media, you know, like movies and things like that. You know, I've seen so many awesome Kung Fu movies. I've seen a bunch of Jackie Chan movies and things like that, that, you know, sometimes invoke themes and whatnot that are similar to the themes that this game has implemented. And so I definitely just want to throw it out there that this game is such a pleasant surprise for me, and I enjoyed it a great deal. But with that, that's the end of my thoughts and the end of Gujian 3. Let's see. Oh, there. Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow, 7 a.m. Pacific, to play something. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See ya the next time I see ya. Peace.